Tape 3W suivi d'école au Sénégal.com. À école au Sénégal, c'est facile, tu n'as qu'à te connecter. Tape école au Sénégal, les leçons sont beaucoup plus détaillées.
So we looked at weather, and so now we're going to go to another topic that talks about the climate. Climate is something that we hear often, regularly. So what is climate? What would you define climate to be? We said weather is short-term atmospheric pressure. It's a short-term atmospheric pressure. But climate is described as a long-term. It's a long-term kind of weather. It's a long-term, so it means that it occurs in the largest span So you can say that, for example, Chad is a very hot country. We'll say hot country, even though they experience rain maybe once or twice, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a hot country. And so climate is something, it's more of a long-term pressure. So it's a long-term weather, and so that is climate. So that's the difference between weather. Weather is short-term, but climate is more of a long-term. And so when we talk about the climate, we say, what's the climate like outside? What's the climate today? What's the climate during the winter? What are you supposed to say? We have different terms when we talk about the climate. When you go out there, what is it? And so we're going to look at some of them. Do you have examples? So we're going to write some of the examples of climate so you can have them. We have hot, of course, and hot could be a very hot, extremely hot, mild, it could be mild, or hot, or very hot, as you can describe. Mild is just that it's average, okay? That's the meaning of mild. It's another way of saying warm. When someone says it's warm, it means that in French they say c'est tiède, like warm water, de l'eau tiède. So hot, hot is a kind of like a climate, So it's hot outside today. So, oh really? It's hot outside. How hot is it? Oh, it's mildly hot. Oh, it's, very hot. It's extremely hot, especially during the summer. It's really, really hot. And then, of course, we have cool, we have cold, we have cool, and then, of course, you can even say mist. Those are some. And then, you can say, oh, it's raining, it's rainy, it's cloudy. And in cloudy, it can be mildly cloudy, or muddy. Those are some of them. Sandy, dusty, And then climate as well, we have snowy, snowy, which brings us to freezing or freezing cold. And then, of course, we have other climates, which we talk about tornadoes. You have tornadoes. You have earthquakes. Those are climate issues. Tornadoes, earthquakes. What else do we have? I'm going to separate them so that you can know they're separate. Freezing, tornadoes. Sometimes in the morning, you can find when it's kind of cool, sometimes you'll find another set which could be, what do you call it, flakes when it's snowy. Where's my snow? You can have what we call like flakes, like snowflakes, You can have snowflakes, you can have as well, there's another one that you can use, you talk about, and I'll get back to it. So hail, that's what I was looking for. You have hail storms, actually, people call them hail. You have hail storms. You have dew in the morning, you have dew. So these are different, let me put them here so you can see it. So these are different as far as climates you can concern. Oh, it's hot outside. And even hot, you can sometimes even say it's sunny outside, because of the sun. So you can say it's sunny outside, it's cold outside, it's cool, it's misty, you can say misty, or even mist, whichever you prefer. Mist, okay, it's just that maybe it has a little bit of droplets. Or even with the hotness, you can as well say it's humid outside, okay? Humid, I mean, depending on the weather, it could be humid sometimes. And then you have rainy, it's raining, outside is rainy. The hailstorms, of course, you also have stormy, when they have a lot of storms. For them, a lot of storms. It's, it's rainy outside, or cool, I have a lot of rain. It's stormy when you have a lot of thunderstorms, okay? So storms like thunderstorms. And then thunderstorms comes with lightning, lightning. So sometimes you hear, lightning and thunder. When it's so heavy and the clouds are all dark, you tell, you have a lot of lightning, there's lightning. You have les éclairs, as I say, lightning and thunder. So thunder are like storms, okay? Like thunderstorms. Let me put thunderstorms here. Thunderstorms. And then you have, of course, cloudy, or you could be even average cloudy. So it could be partly cloudy. So it could be either cloudy or you have a lot of clouds, and then you could be partly cloudy. When you have a bit of sun at the same time, a bit of clouds, just like in the middle, And then you also have, I almost forgot, you also have windy. You also have windy. So you have cloudy, then you have dew. Dew is something that you find in the morning sometimes after, a cool, when, the clouds wants to release some excess water or so. So it comes out it comes as in the way of dew, so it falls out. So you have, morning dew. So they call it morning dew. It's not evening dew, but it's always like morning dew. So everywhere becomes a little bit dark, And then we talked about lightning and so on. And then hails. Hails are like stones, like rocks that fall off, It's rain, but it doesn't fall off in a way of water, but it falls down in the way of like stones and rocks. They're called hails, and they could be very dangerous, okay? Because sometimes they break into cars, windows and windscreens and things like that. And it's kind of trickish when you're trying to drive. It's kind of slippery, So talking about snow, you can also talk about icy. We'll go back to that. So it's cloudy, it's dew, and then you have muddy. Muddy talks about the ground, when you have a lot of mud. Sometimes you go to areas that has red ground. So when rain falls on it, it becomes wet. So wet too would come from rain, wet. Is the opposite of dry, which is here, which is dry. It's a dry outside. The weather is kind of dry outside. It's kind of stuffy, stuffy. So it could be dry, it could be stuffy. But during the rainy, it's wet. When it's rain everywhere, the ground is wet, you can also get wet. So that's wet, And so cloudy, dew, And then you have muddy, like I said. Sandy comes from a lot of sand. If you're in Senegal, like in Mamel, Ouakam, that has a lot of sand. You call that, it's very sandy outside. Or at the beach, you have a lot of sand. So it comes from sand on the ground. Mud comes from mud, comme la boue. French people say la boue. And then dusty comes from la poussière. It's very dusty. So sometimes when the wind blows, it gets very dusty. Okay, so remember, like we talked about the dry weather. So that's dust. Comes from, then it becomes very dusty. And then sand, sandy, mud, muddy, cloud, cloudy, rain, rainy. So it's raining, or you can say it's raining outside. If they ask you, for example, during the spring, so what they say, you're not going to say it's rainy, but you're going to say it's raining. Si c'est en train de, if the action is going on, present continuous, it's raining outside. Okay, it's snowing outside. It's freezing, so raining, that would be if the action is going on. And then you have snowy, that will be during The winter, like now, for example, in most parts of the world, it's snowing, and then sometimes the climate would be that it's very cold. So it's very cold. The weather will be like it's freezing cold. It's not just cold, but it's actually freezing cold because it's like polar cold because it's negative. So the degree is not underneath. So it's freezing cold. And then you have what comes on like snowflakes. It's called snowflakes. The snow that comes down, they're called snowflakes. A lot of flakes outside, and then icy. Sometimes it becomes so solidified, so strong that it becomes icy. And so maybe there's icy cold or it's icy outside, icy. And then of course we have tornadoes. We know what tornadoes are because we're bad weather. And then earthquakes, when you have the earth that are trembling, they're called earthquakes. And then tornadoes. And then we have the last one, windy. Windy is when it has a lot, comes from wind. It's windy, windy, blows in a lot of air that carries the leaves and all. It's windy. So these are some examples of like the climate that you can use, climate weather that you can use if they have to maybe describe it. For example, they ask you to talk about the 4 seasons or your favorite season and why. You should be able to use some of the terms, hot, cold, and I'm sure that there are some terms that you've never heard about, right? That you don't know where that falls. Okay, so I try to put them in like the right terms, like for example, hot will go with mild or very hot or hot, humid or dry, or sunny. Cold will go with cool or mist, and the rain will go with wet, will go with thunderstorms and lightning, because it's often when you have heavy rains that you experience thunder and lightning, and then the area becomes wet, okay? And then sometimes as well, it becomes cloudy because of the rain, because rain probably wants to fall. It becomes cloudy, or it becomes partly cloudy, partly cloudy. So it has maybe it starts off being sunny and ends up being cloudy, or it starts off being cloudy and ends up being sunny. That is called partly cloudy. And then dew, I told you morning dew was like some freshness, like some raindrops that fall off in the morning. So it falls under the rain. And then hail too, their rain falls, but that falls in the form of rocks, rocks. And then of course these parts are the mud, the sand, and the dust. And then snowing, there's at your tips. It could be freezing cold, it could be very extremely cold, it could be very cold, and it falls like in the form of snowflakes, or it can fall in the form of ice, becomes icy. And then you have tornadoes that go round like that and take stuff, and then you have earthquakes, and then you have the wind. But wind will probably even go with dusty, okay? So maybe we should put wind with dusty. Maybe we should put wind. We'll probably put wind with dusty, because sometimes when it's dusty, the wind takes the dust away. So these are the climates. So that you hope that it helps, so you have an idea of where what falls. And we're going to use now these particular ones to try to table our seasons. We're going to use this, and then we'll place them in our seasons so that you know where what is. And then of course, humid and dry, hot, cold. Of course, you can have another one that I just remembered, warm. If something is warm, it could be a warm weather. So it's neither hot, it's temperate, okay? Warm is temperate. It's neither hot, it's neither cold. It's just at the center, so it's warm weather, okay? So thank you, and I'll see you soon.
T'as 3 W suivi d'école au Sénégal.